Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit entitled Parents and it's by user tallmonth9107. My father and his newfound entitlement. Background: my father married his now wife when I was 15. She was really pushy with me because her relationship with her own daughter was almost non-existent. My father did nothing and I ended up moving with my grandpa, my father's father, a few months later. Grandpa passed away suddenly when I was 17 and I inherited all his properties. Instead of moving back with my dad and his wife, they moved in with me to Grandpa's house. I left when I was 18 to go to college and go back home a few times a year. I let them stay there rent-free as long as they don't touch my room and Grandpa's office. The house has 4 rooms. Anyway, I got a call from him telling me that I need to clean my room because they planned to turn it into a nursery room. Apparently, my father's wife got in touch with her daughter because she is pregnant and doesn't have a place to stay. So he let his stepdaughter move in without consulting me. There was an empty room for her, but he wanted to give her my room because he claims it was too small for both of them. I denied his request and reminded him who owns the house they are staying in and to better not touch the rooms unless they want me to kick them out. I told them that if they have a problem, they can go back to his house where she can take my old room. I don't know if he still has the house. I thought that was more than reasonable, but my uncle, father's brother, who doesn't have the best relationship with my father, called me to say to think about it and not kick them out. So I called my lawyer to accompany me to the house to deal with all of this in a civil manner. We went early in the morning with the paperwork. Once we arrived and I tried to open the door, I got the unpleasant surprise that my father had changed the locks, a big mistake. We talked through the door and he told me that until I changed my mind, he wasn't going to let me in. I told him that I wasn't planning to kick them out and I was there to solve this the right way, but if he wasn't going to let me in, I was going to do it my way. He didn't let me in. So on my way to the police station, my uncle called me and said that my father called him in order to make me change my mind, but he wasn't going to do it and will support whatever I decided. At the police station, my lawyer explained the situation to them and they came with us so I could evict them without issues. Once there, the police spoke to them and told them that they had to let me in and get their things out as soon as possible. I hired a moving truck for them. My father tried to fight, saying that he sold his house and doesn't have a place to go. He also claimed that he was the rightful owner of my house, but the dimwit doesn't have any paperwork to prove it. In a last attempt, he brought up the fact that my stepsister is pregnant, but unfortunately for them, she is in the early stages and doesn't matter either way. After their circus was over, the removal of their things was quick. Most of the things in the house are mine, except for the things they had in their room and my stepsister's stuff. Anyway, they left. I changed the locks again and I installed security cameras. I thought my father's misdeeds were over as the house was the last thing that was keeping our relationship alive, but I was wrong. I hadn't heard from him until a few days ago when he showed up at the house again. I wasn't there, but my girlfriend was. To note, at this point in time, my girlfriend had moved in and was living with me. So she told me that my father was there to tell us that since we are now living in the house, we have to host them for Christmas holidays. Not only that, he gave her a list of the food he wanted and the gifts they expected to receive. My girlfriend told him to go away before she called the police. I again thought it was over, but I was wrong again. Yesterday we received another visit from him. Apparently, he called my mother to invite her to spend the holidays with us. She blew him off and told them she will take us, my girlfriend and I, to Europe for New Year's Eve. He had the balls to demand she take them too. My mother just hung up. Mind you, this was the first time they had spoken after divorcing 16 years ago. He then came to the house to demand I convince my mother to take them too, or that we pay for them to go with us. At this point, his attitude stopped being disappointing and turned comical. My girlfriend and I just laughed at him. We laughed so hard that we didn't notice when he left. I can say that we didn't have the best relationship, but he wasn't entitled. I mean, it was already clear why my grandfather, his father, was completely disappointed in him. but it seems that he wants to take it to another new level. I don't know if he will stop, but I hope he does for the rest of the year. Wow, Opie, your dad's got issues. I mean, I don't know if he's outright an entitled idiot or if there's something loose in the attic, but that dude's got issues. Or his wife is manipulating him. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It shouldn't be your problem. And I gotta say, I can totally see you and your girlfriend laughing. I mean, I was laughing my ass off when I heard that he gave you a list of the things that he was expecting to receive that year for... Come on, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? And on top of that, he demands that either his ex-wife, who he hasn't spoken to in 16 years, or you pay for a trip for him to go to Europe because why? Opie, if you don't have a good relationship with your dad or a non-existent relationship and you don't want one, well then maybe just go no contact and avoid all of this. And what do you guys think about what OP's dad is doing or what he thinks? What would you do if you were in OP's shoes? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Excellent ad 1132 says, you will need to make sure you have an excellent security system that covers the entire house inside and out. Make sure it informs you of anyone coming near, even if you are in Europe, just in case he decides the house is really his and tries to either move in or show up and take what he can. You need to shut him down now and hard before it gets worse. And OP responds, we have a great security system in the house and its surroundings. He is also persona non grata in the neighborhood. When I evicted them, the police and my lawyer let him know that he could be in serious trouble if he tries to enter the house without my permission. Crimson Black Shrike says, my first thoughts on reading this was head injury, mental illness, dementia, etc. If this is brand new behavior, maybe. If you just didn't see it because you weren't around, probably not. You do need a security system if you're not going to be around. You definitely need one if he had become delusional and believes the place is his, or he has some kind of rights to the place. Maybe you are right and they are just entitled, but where is that going to lead them? To go away or to demand and maybe try to take what they believe is their due? If you do travel for the holidays, do hire someone to stay at the house. Make sure they understand that your father may try to enter the house. If you don't want to have someone in the house, then a private security company making frequent checks is another option. If you have pets and do not get a house sitter, do not leave your pets in the home with someone just checking once or twice a day. Yes, my family has had people go after the pets when we were not home. And OP responds, yeah, my girlfriend thinks this kind of behavior was already there, but I didn't see it because I wasn't around much and our interactions were always brief. We have a security system and people close to us know about him. Even our neighbors know what to do if they see him around when we are not home. Mad Peachy Pie says, if your mom ever agrees to take random old people to Europe for New Year's, I'd like to point out that my husband, 70 male, and I, 60 female, are excellent travelers and loads of fun and don't mind paying for dinner. And we promise to never try to move into your house. And OP responds, unfortunately, my mother is not the most friendly person out there, although expensive gifts are common from her. I'm surprised that she's doing this for us, so I doubt she'll agree to invite you or anyone else, kind stranger. Additional information from OP's comments. As some of you guessed from my writing, I'm not from the US. I prefer not to say the country, but it is located in America. Here, as long as you have the legal papers in your name, things will go your way. If my father had at least one bill in his name, I would probably have had to start a legal process and things could have taken longer. The result would have been the same. But because everything was in my name and I was paying everything, he had no case and everything was quick. In fact, my father actually committed a crime. Even if he had something to his name or a proper contract in place, he can't make modifications without my approval or deny me access. He did both. The police could have used force without the need for a legal process. That's what I wanted, but I kept it clean on the advice of my lawyer. Funny thing is, I have never asked them for rent. I was comfortable with just having them watch the house. I agree that he is broken, but it is by his own hand and not by pressure of any kind. He knows what he is doing. I was basically raised by my grandparents, his parents, and they didn't raise me any different than him or my uncle, who is another case. It baffles me that they turned this way. My grandparents raised us to be decent people, but they decided not to be. It is so bad that my grandparents passed away without speaking to either of them. I grew up watching him make one mistake after another with no accountability or attempt to be better. My grandparents tried to help him, but he refused and said he was living his life the way he wanted. How can you help someone when he thinks he is right? My grandfather used to say that my father is weak, and I agree because I have no argument to say otherwise. I never expected to get anything from my grandparents. I'm grateful for what they left me, and I still would be if they left me nothing because they did more than what they should. In the end, I take what I'm given, and if that makes me entitled, okay. OP's edit. I have a security system. There are cameras everywhere. I know if he's there. I have other properties, and my tenants are people close to my girlfriend and me. I doubt he will try to break in when we're not here. When I evicted them, my lawyer and the police were more than clear that he could face serious problems if he tries to enter the house or any of my properties. Unfortunately, in my country, any kind of restraining order is pretty much useless. It is more helpful to call the police right then and there, and he knows I have no problem calling them. Alright, well, the community has different theories regarding the dad, but they all agree that he's being ridiculous and that OP is in the right. And OP's gave us a little bit more context to understand his family dynamics and his dad and uncle. So now it's time that we move on with the update to see how this story ends, but before that, of course, you know that here's another one of my playlists for you to enjoy after this video. Now let's move on with the update. After the last incident with my father, everything was quiet and my girlfriend and I left for Europe. Christmas passed and there was no sight of my father. My friends that were taking care of the house reported no incidents. Everything was going well until I received a call from my uncle, father's brother, on December 28th. He called me to tell me he's leaving the state and is selling his house. He asked me if I was interested in the house because he was pretty desperate to leave. He didn't tell me the reason why he was leaving, and I didn't care. What mattered to me is that he was desperate and this was the opportunity to fulfill my grandpa's wish. You see, my uncle's house was my grandfather's childhood home. My grandpa gave it to him but later regretted it. He left me the task of recovering it and, if I succeeded, giving it to my cousin Marie, my uncle's daughter from his first marriage. He never recognized her, and that is one of the many reasons for my grandpa's regret. My uncle doesn't know that I have contact with his daughter or that I know everything that happened in the past. If he did, he wouldn't sell me the house. Yes, he is that petty. Now, I decided to use the family card and my uncle's desperation to get the house cheap. I know more or less the value of the house, so I made him an offer, way below the real value, but that I was going to pay him in 3 installments. My uncle declined because it was too low and because he is not coming back. What he really meant is that he is not going to contact me again. I told him that if he could wait until my return, January 3rd, I could pay him the same amount in one go, but I would also take care of the legal fees and his moving expenses. Meanwhile, he just needed to pack his things, have his paperwork ready, and everything would be done that day. Surprisingly, he immediately agreed. We returned and I could buy the house without problems, and my uncle left the same day. The next day, I called my cousin to tell her to come as soon as she can to my country, she lives in Europe, because there is one more thing that my grandparents left for her. She came a few days ago and I gave her the house and the rest of the money. She had to stay a few days to deal with the paperwork, and in those days, who decided to appear once again? My father. Unbeknownst to me, my uncle had another buyer, and that person was my father. My father asked my uncle to wait a few days so he could gather more money. When he got it, he called my uncle, but he already sold me the house. My uncle, in order to avoid dealing with my father, told him that I bought the house. My father, knowing that he can no longer approach my house, decided to go to my new one, but he was going to receive a surprise. He knocked and demanded that I give it to him, but no one is in there for the moment, so he decided to break in. Yes, he did. We saw everything through the doorbell camera. My cousin doesn't speak our language, so I was the one who called the police in her name. Thanks to the area where the house is and the fact that my cousin is a foreigner, the police took action faster than the previous times. It is a pity that I don't have a photo of my father's face when he discovered that the house wasn't mine. It was glorious. My cousin, with my lawyer's help and mine, pressed charges, and combined with my father's previous actions, he will spend a few months in jail. Also, thanks to a few people, I was able to find out why my uncle was desperate to leave. He pissed off his wife's family, like really bad. I sent him a text telling him that if he liked ratting me out to my partner, I can do the same with his wife's family, so he better not come back unless he wants to play stupid games. He blocked me after that, lol. He already told me he wasn't coming back, but I better make sure he doesn't. In the end, if my cousin decides to keep the house, this will benefit her since she doesn't want to cross paths with my uncle. So yeah, the year started off with a bang. I pretty much got rid of my so-called family for what I think is forever and can finally start building one with my girlfriend without the worry of unwanted people showing up. Well, OP, I'm gonna call this a happy update for everybody. Of course, except your dad because he's in jail, but that's because he's an idiot. You now have no unwanted family and can focus on your relationship with your girlfriend, and your cousin has a house, which is awesome. So here's wishing you guys the best in the future and take care. Thank you for sharing, OP. Now, let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Petty Revenge and it's by user Ms. Elanius. Revenge on my neighbor with wandering dogs. I live in a rural and remote area that's mostly acreages. I get along with my neighbors except for one man that lives across the road and down about 100 meters. He has 2 dogs who keep coming onto my property and chasing my chickens. They've killed a few. They've killed my duck. They killed my rabbit the one time she escaped from her enclosure. I've asked the neighbor nicely to keep his dogs at home. He just says that it's my problem because I free range my chickens on my own property. He seems to not understand the difference between me free-ranging my chickens on my own property and his dogs free-ranging the neighborhood, chasing and or killing other people's animals. My chickens kill bugs on my own property. His dogs kill chickens on my property. It's not rocket science. This man even went to another neighbor and gave her crap for feeding her own cat on her deck outside her back door because his dogs keep going over and eating the cat food and are getting fat. I've called the police to find out what I can do about it. They basically shrugged and said that without a bylaw, there was nothing they could do. They wanted me to put pressure on the municipality to pass a bylaw, but I know they have no budget to hire bylaw enforcement. I'm friends with the chief administrative officer and we've had that conversation. So it would still be up to the police and they're not going to drive all the way out here from town, 30 minutes, over a couple of dogs killing chickens. Anyway, a friend of mine moved her family down to the city to go to grad school and asked me if I would take her to Marimas. I said yes. For those who don't know, Marimas are big. They are livestock guardian dogs. They will protect my chickens from my neighbor's dogs. So, my neighbor messaged me tonight a link with instructions on how to stop your dogs from barking. I lost it laughing. My dogs are constantly barking at his dogs at the perimeter of my property, which does not border his at all. His dogs are trying to come down my driveway and are running up and down the road all the time. I texted him back that my dogs are simply barking at his dogs when they try to come onto my property, and if he wants my dogs to stop barking, he needs to keep his dogs at home. No response from him, but within 5 minutes all the barking stopped because he called his dogs home. The funny part is that I had no idea the barking would annoy him so much. None of my other neighbors have complained, but the irony that his annoyance at my dogs barking is because they are barking at his dogs who should be at home but never are is just too much for me. I'm still laughing. OP's update. I tried talking to him, but nothing changed. So when friends decided to move to the city and needed to rehome their 2 Marimas, livestock guardian dogs, I took them in. My neighbor didn't like all the barking, but most of the time the dogs were barking at his dogs who were on the street or in my driveway. I thought it was hilarious because he could control how annoying my dogs were, but had to actually deal with his dogs in order to do so. Well, one day in the winter, I had my dogs out in the backyard of my place. Neighbors' dogs heard my dogs playing with me and came over to check things out. As soon as I yelled at them to go home, my dogs attacked them. It was loud and a bit scary, and I called my dogs off pretty quickly and put them back in their fenced yard. No dogs were hurt, but it's been 3 months and the neighbors' dogs have not come back over since. They're still on the road all the time, but they're not chasing and killing my chickens anymore. Maybe they've actually learned their lesson. Well, OP, from what you tell us, it sounds that your neighbor's dogs did learn the lesson, and apparently so did your neighbor. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.